Ah, there we go.
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Hey!
And welcome to the Candid Frank Live Maple Leaf Talk Show. We talk about the Canadian teams in the National Hockey League, as well as we concentrate on the Maple Leafs, of course. If you'd like to see or you enjoy what you watch, you can always join us and subscribe at YouTube channel Candid Frank Stanisci 1030. And, of course, he's Aaron William Freeland. You can find him on Facebook. You have a Twitter handle, too, but you still... Give me the Twitter handle. I never
Uh,
asked you about it.
yeah, no, of course. My Twitter handle is actually at L_meathead. So that is where to find me. It's an old holdover. It's been around for a while. It's capital EL_capital MEATHEAD. You can also find me as L Meathead on threads.net and on Blue Sky. So I am on all three of those. I am also on Twitch. So you can find me there as well if you're truly interested. Um, but yeah, we are everywhere and nowhere all at once.
Is that it?
Yeah,
That's it? I'm waiting for a
that's
couple
it.
more there, buddy. Yeah, you know what? Um, there is something to be said for the internet. I guess we joke sometimes about the fact that being a Leaf fan means sometimes you can't say you're sorry, or you don't want to say you're sorry, or you feel like you should say sorry. Right now, the Leafs have been literally hot and cold for periods of time, and they've gone like 3 games losing, 3 games winning. The unfortunate thing about it is, with that, they're kind of hovering in the standings, which means the other teams in the Atlantic Division, Detroit, Ottawa, um, I'm not good. I guess Detroit and Ottawa are pretty much the 2 teams that have been really improving. Tampa, Boston, um, well, they won't count Montreal. They're hovering in the wrong zone. Have been hovering like the Leafs have, right? For the most part, they're pretty much
Yeah,
where they've been, and there's a dangerous situation for all those teams. They're all there's to my count, there's 6 teams in the Atlantic Division, maybe 7 if Montreal cleans up its act, that could actually be truly fighting for the 5 spots max that they can get. Max, because if anybody in the Metropolitan Division, if they play really well, that'll be another Atlantic team that won't be in. And we've got right now, the 2 wild cards are from the Atlantic Division, and the
yeah.
Leafs are
It,
in that Atlantic Division.
it's a rather interesting situation to find yourselves in. Ottawa has been 7-3-0 in their past 10. Detroit has been 7-2-1. Tampa Bay has won their last game, but they've been sliding lately. Detroit's on a 7-game win streak.
Eh?
So, take that with a grain of salt. But they're currently sitting in the number one wild card spot right in front of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Um, Buffalo's won 4 in a row, but they're way down the standings with 49 points. The Flyers and the Penguins are both 4-5-1. The Habs have been distressing lately. They just managed to win a game to break their, I think it was a 4-game losing streak. It's not been a rosy picture, for sure.
For some, it's been very good. Ottawa is finally becoming the team that you and I both know they could be. Um, and I got to say, I've been waiting for a few years for this, and we waited through coaching changes. We waited through player changes. We waited through them bringing in older, more experienced players that have added some, I guess, stability to the franchise. And there's been no more a stable move than the one that saw the new transition, new ownership. I think, Aaron, I've told you over the years that ownership makes a difference. And I don't think it's a coincidence this owner's come in and the team looks totally different. Yet you would ask yourself, well, what the heck does the owner have to do with it?
A lot of it is attitude, man. If the owner is upbeat about what's going on and isn't a doomsayer and doesn't make people feel, like, oh, woe is me, everything is terrible, there is a very good chance that that team will do a heck of a lot better. So I'm just grateful to see the new ownership is doing what they can to try to help everything along here. Being relentlessly positive is a good thing in this particular case.
And faithfully adhering to the decisions you make,
There's that too. Yeah. I mean, the
right?
fact that he's willing to back up his words with actions, and he's been as consistent as he has been with this sort of thing is very heartening.
An owner can't be involved day to day, but there are times when the owner has to establish, um, whatever it is that he thinks is what's important for the team. In this case, I don't think it's an accident that the Ottawa Senators have done something that I think was important, as important as I thought it was for Toronto.
Hmm.
Um, there are two things that are the same here when you talk about the Leafs and the Senators. They both had coaches with no experience. Now, with different results, right? Like
Yeah.
Ottawa had their coach, their young coach didn't bring them to the playoffs. They got him from the Leafs, but they didn't really make the playoffs. So that's not a good thing. With the Leafs, in their case, their young coach couldn't handle the pressure of the playoffs. And by handling the pressure of the playoffs, I mean have the right players and have the right mentality installed in those players to play in the playoffs. There's something to be said for experience. So not only, I'm going to give the owner credit in Ottawa, and when I do that, it seems kind of silly because the Leafs don't have a new owner, but they have a new attitude at who should coach. They decided to bring experience. Aaron, sometimes and I'll let you comment to this. Sometimes we talk about bringing out the old, the old coaches, the carousel, right?
Yeah.
And there's something to be said for that carousel gets a little tired, a little rickety.
No, it definitely does, and I think a lot of the issues that we run into here is people want more of the same, and they want that familiarity that a certain coach and a certain coaching style brings. And that unfortunately tends to stifle creativity in the NHL, which can cause problems. The same coaching carousel, while it is comforting to some, doesn't always work. And that's the thing that people need to bear in mind.
I think a carousel is a good description because sometimes you got to check where the rust is and either replace those horses, those rides, whatever you want to refer to them as, and bring in a new, a stronger version of that. And the Leafs making the change they made, I was pushing for an experienced coach for a long time, even after they let go of a very experienced coach in Babcock. He
Hmm.
just was the wrong coach for that GM. I think that's a fair statement. So what are we saying there? We've said ownership is important. Ownership needs to make a decision and stand by the decision and not interfere with the decisions that decision makes.
Hmm.
So in other words, you got to hire the right GM. And if you're an owner and you have a president like the Leafs do, you got to hire the right president and you got to trust him or her to hire the right GM. And in turn, everybody has to look at that GM and say, okay, we're here to help you. Any advice you need, we'll talk to you. It doesn't have to be a GM that doesn't listen to everybody else, because that's important too, right, Aaron? You got to get advice from the outside. The bottom line is it's teamwork as opposed to having one person run the show and pretend other people have positions. We have that issue in Dallas with the Dallas Cowboys, where you have an owner who thinks he's a GM and the team keeps faltering, and it's the fault of the coach and the players. No, it's not. It's the fault of the owner who thinks he's a GM. So this is why I think Ottawa's better. They've got an owner now who didn't change general managers. He's got the same guy that was there, right?
Yeah.
And he's changed coaches, and the coach has a different way of doing things, and he's doing it in a real good way. Um, Tell me about Nylander and his 8th annual hat trick.
So this is one of those things that's actually been a long time coming.
8 years.
Yeah, he goes back to the city of his birth, which is awesome. He was born in Calgary, for those of you who don't recall. He actually notched his second career hat trick on Tuesday as the Leafs beat the Calgary Flames. With 9 goals in his last 8 games, Nylander has reached the 33-goal mark, second in the NHL behind Leon Draisaitl of the Edmonton Oilers, who has 37. It was his first hat trick in 8 years to the day. So, talk about waiting a long time for a repeat of a good thing to happen. But yeah, it's for years. It's been since he's gotten his second hat trick. Johnny Tavares, Bobby McMahon, and Matty Nyes also scored for Toronto. They're now within 1 point of the Atlantic Division leading Florida Panthers, and they actually have 2 games in hand. Austin Matthews had 3 assists. On the flip side of the coin, Matt Coronado, Yegor Sharangovich, and Joel Farabee, with his first as a Flame, technically his second, scored for
No,
Calgary.
his first. The first one didn't count.
The first one didn't count, but it probably should have. They opened the night 2 points up on the Vancouver Canucks for the second wildcard playoff berth in the Western Conference, but starting his 4th game in a row and his 8th in the team's last 9, Joseph Woll made 23 saves to improve to 19-10-0. On the opposite side of the ice, Dustin Wolf had 24 saves. He falls to 19-10-2. Weird start, with 2 goals being disallowed. It's really interesting out of all of that. Marner missed another game. He's 4th in the NHL in scoring, interestingly enough, and has missed his first game of the season. His absence obviously didn't hurt Toronto's power play. They went 2 for 2 with the extra man in Edmonton, and then scored on the first 2 chances on the Flames on the way to going 2 and 4 on the night. So, the goals by Coronado and Sharangovich, it's important to notice, came on extended 2-man advantages. The Leafs managed to pile up penalties, which is never a good thing.
They've been a team that in previous years they were a team that drew penalties a lot more. They've been not getting the calls this year that they were getting in previous years. I guess there's something to be said for being a little more physical, demanding your players to make contact with the opponents, which is what nobody has to stand out front, and have a presser. Saying, well, the Maple Leafs this year are more physical. I think we can see it. And statistically, we're reminded of it after each game if you look at the stats. The one thing that, to finish with Nylander, he's a guy who, is it fair to say he scores in bunches? But it's funny, he hasn't had many hat tricks. Like, he scores in bunches, but not bunches. He's sort of below the radar bunches.
Yeah, it's clumpy or patchy scoring, really, but it's not.
Maybe patchy's a better descriptor.
Yeah, because it's like he'll surprise you, and it's awesome. But at the same time, it's one of those. It's one of those. Well, I didn't see that coming, but at the same time, I kind of could feel it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, because for a guy who can score that many goals as he does, 33, and he's had a couple of goal droughts of like 7 and 9 games. And yet he hasn't had like anything past 2 goals. This is the first time he's had a hat trick, and he's up to 33. So he gets his 1-2 goals, a lot of them. He doesn't get the third one, but I got to tell you, he has probably been one of the main reasons why the Leafs scoring hasn't been a problem, because how do you make up for what I guess Matthews would have had by now? He would have had something like 35. Just under 40 by now, and he's at half that.
The way that he's been scoring this past little while, he's actually on a 70+ goal pace, which is absolutely nutty to me. Obviously, he's not going to reach that just based on the way his season has fallen out. But at the same time, it's been one of those. He's back and he's on course, and it's going to be a nightmare for other teams come the playoffs.
Absolutely. Let's go over to talk about to the Leafs head coach Berube. Are you concerned?
I'll be honest with you. I don't think he is. He's even come out publicly and said, Marner may be hurt, but at the same time, I'm not really worried about it. He doesn't think it's serious. I'm hoping he's available the next game. That's the way to look at it. We'll see if he can get on the ice Wednesday. We'll see how he reacts. He was better on Tuesday afternoon, so that was a good sign. And you'll basically go from there. Yeah, he was spotted at the rink following the game and walking around without any signs. Without any aid, or he wasn't limping. So it doesn't look like he was dealing with any sort of injury, which is positive news. But it looks like they're actually giving him a couple days maintenance. So
Speaking of
that is.
maintenance, Nylander's looking for some.
Oh yeah, he's definitely thinking the best way to celebrate getting a hat trick might be to take the day off. I don't necessarily blame him. I know you're getting into a certain part of the season now where players are getting more banged up, and the occasional day out of the spotlight and you know off, maybe lying down on the couch with your dog, isn't necessarily the bad thing. Uh,
How about Stollers? He's on his way back, Stollers.
he is almost back. He has been seen on the ice. He has been working out with the team. I don't think he's been taking very heavy reps, but that's okay. This is bone chips in the knee is never something that you really want to rush anybody back from. Yarncroke and Hakanpää have both been on the ice as well, not taking contact, but they're at least working with skating coaches and looking like they're getting some puck work in. So that's a good thing.
Hakanpää has finally bowed out of playing for the Finnish team in the All-Star Festival.
I mean, it was bound to happen at some point. It's not all. It's not like you can just magically come back from what he had. So, well, hopefully he'll be able to get into some games for the Leafs this season because I really would like to see him play.
We saw him a couple of games, and he was interesting on the ice.
Yeah,
it'd be interesting to see. This guy has not played for the Leafs for any amount of time that's relatively reasonable. I mean, he's played very little, and he was good enough to be called by the Finnish team to play for them. Finland's not a slouch. Not just anybody could play for Finland. They're a team that's pretty dominant in the world of hockey. So, and he's a guy who could make that team. At least they felt he could have made that team. So there's something to be said for him. I mean, there's only they've got a player per team. You've got Nylander, with Sweden. You've got Marner with Canada, and Austin Matthews with the U.S. And Hakanpää makes the fourth Leaf on the four different teams. So, have the Leafs got some good American players? Absolutely. Have they got some good Canadian players? Absolutely. Have they got some good Swedish players? Yeah, yes, they do. But Finnish players, they're pretty. They don't have that many that are that good on their team. Nobody that really stands out. So the Leafs come into this All-Star break with an opportunity to be healthy going into the All-Star break. What good is that, Aaron? Make sure you're 100% healthy, maintenance time, and then you're going to have those three players that are pretty key. And as much as Nylander has done, he knows a little bit about himself, and he does like that part of him taking time off. He's a different guy. There's nothing average about that guy. Not the way he scores, not the way he thinks, and not the way he dresses.
No, definitely not. That dude is definitely a fashion plate. But and I don't know if you were watching the actual broadcast, but they did actually show some pictures of him in Sugo with his dogs, off leash, of course.
Yes.
Dude is fashionable. Don't get me wrong. I think it's absolutely great. I like the fact that he has retained his ability to take a poke at himself every once in a while and sort of chuckle at what's going on and what he's going through. That's
absolutely, and you need that trait to play in
100%.
Let's go to the rest of the NHL teams that are Canadian. And Armia had a good game, important game, helped Montreal beat the Sharks.
Yeah, it's something they've been looking to do for a while, especially when they've been mired in the middle of a 5-game losing streak. Armia scored a shorthanded tie-breaking goal late in the third period, and they managed to hang on to beat the Sharks 4-3. Alex Newhook had a goal and an assist, and Cole Caulfield and Brendan Gallagher also scored for the Canadians, who were 0-4-1 during their recent skid. Kirby Doc had 2 assists, and Sam Montembeault finished with 27 saves. Macklin Celebrini and Tyler Toffoli each had a goal and an assist, and Colin Graff also scored for the Sharks, who have now lost 2 straight and 8 of their last 9. Alexander Georgiev made 16 saves on 20 shots. That is borderline unusable in the NHL. He is, it appears, living up to his nickname of Alexander Forgiev. So we'll have to see what happens. But
yeah, it's too bad.
It's been rough, man.
Then you have the Sens playing a team they want to catch to make the playoffs in the Tampa Bay Lightning. And Tampa floundering a little bit. And you quite rightly pointed out that, they could be better, and they apparently were last night.
They were. They had a bit of an advantage. The Senators were actually coming off the first half of a back-to-back when they beat the Preds 5-2 for their 5th straight win on Monday night. And then Brandon Hagel scored less than 2 minutes into the third period to give Tampa Bay Lightning the lead for good in a 4-3 win over the Ottawa Senators. Glendening, Kucherov, and McDonough also scored for Tampa Bay. Vasilevsky finished with 25 saves. Michael Amadio, Claude Giroux, and Drake Matheson scored for Ottawa. Linus Ullmark, making his first start since December 22nd, by the way, finished with 34 saves. So good to see. Nice, consistent effort, strong effort from the Sens. But unfortunately, at the end of the day, just too much to ask for them to be able to beat the Lightning.
Jets are back in roll mode.
Yeah, 7 games in a row. Jeez. They started the season fascinatingly enough by winning as many as they did. Eric Comrie finally got a shutout. He made 29 saves in the 3-0 victory over the Canes that extended the team's win streak to 7 games here. Comrie is now 5-7-1 this season, in which his teammates actually have often blamed themselves for not being able to help him out as much as they helped out Hellebuck. This was his 3rd shutout, and his last shutout before that was March 25th of 2023.
How about Brown scoring for the Oilers to win a game? What a goal! I saw that goal. Was awesome.
It was a beauty of a goal, and who'd ever think that Connor McDavid would be acting as the distraction for Connor Brown, like, of all people.
His first goal in like a month.
Well deserved, though. He had consistent play all night. He was good along the boards and down low, and I'm glad to see he finally had that chance.
Demko gets a shutout for Vancouver.
It's his first shutout of the season. They managed to blank the Avalanche 3-0. Jake DeBrusk, Brock Besser, and Drew O'Connor scored the goals. Thatcher Demko only had to make 25 saves. Now, the Canucks find themselves tied with the Calgary Flames in points percentage, but are still outside the playoffs due to the tiebreaker. That was one of the best home games I think that I've seen Vancouver play this season. I was flipping back and forth between this game and the Leafs game. But while the team as a whole played well, Demko was definitely the highlight. So I'm very happy for him to get that win.
Let's close it out with a couple of other Toronto teams, and we'll start with the Raptors, who apparently have, with injuries now behind them, they seem to have a pretty good team after all.
They do. They've put together a bit of a win streak before having it snapped. Have won the last 2 games, but I think they're still looking to tank, but in a slightly more ethical fashion than just straight up throwing up their hands and going, "We give up." There is a lot of youth that this team has to work with, so that's a good thing for them. But I think they're just looking to sort of ease themselves into a draft lottery position, just to make sure that they actually have an opportunity.
Now the Blue Jays, they brought in Max Scherzer, who didn't really have that good a year last year. He was 2-4, but he's making 15.5 million for this one season, and he's got a lot of bonuses he can earn. Yeah,
everything seems to have checked out just fine. I know that there were some concerns that he might not necessarily pass a physical. He has had some issues over the past couple of years when it comes to injuries and staying healthy. His career regular season record is 216-112 with a 3.16 ERA and 3,407 strikeouts. Now, some of the milestones that they have for him are he can get a bonus of 150 grand for winning a Cy Young, 125 grand for finishing second, 100,000 for third, 75,000 for fourth, and 50,000 for fifth. He can also add 50 grand to his total by being named an All-Star, 50 grand for a Gold Glove, 50 grand for a World Series MVP, sorry, and 25 grand for a League Championship Series MVP. Yeah, I'd like to think that he's recovered. All the word coming out now is that he has been for the most part. We're just hoping he manages to stay healthy for the entire season.
He's won 2 World Series, but he's 40 years old, and they're paying him a lot of money. And I just I'm sure there's a chance that he could have a good year, but this seems to be another one of those deals. This tandem that runs the Blue Jays makes this deal that we got to look like we're doing something, because this one here doesn't have depth. It's a surface move in my opinion, and we'll find out early in the season how factual that statement is. It's interesting to say the least. Aaron, the biggest news out there, I guess, would you agree, is the provincial election happening in Ontario?
I still haven't received my $200 check from Doug Ford, so I'm currently undecided as to who I'm going to vote for. Michelle got hers, but I still haven't received my bribe yet.
He's kidding. He won't vote for him if he gives him $5,000. Oh, maybe he would.
Well, I'll tell you this much, Frank. Thanks to the cuts that Doug Ford has made to healthcare, my family medical services provider has switched to a subscription model for this year for now out of service medical requirements, such as renewing prescriptions, faxes, and other services that he used to offer for free, thanks to Doug Ford's cuts to Medicare, to Ontario Healthcare, which means basically that $200 that he's taking, I'm putting directly back into my doctor's pocket,
if not more,
for the subscription. So,
if not more.
Yep.
It is a little ridiculous. I told you a few weeks ago that there'd be both elections, and now that the Ontario one was a snap election, because I guess the reason Ford was doing it, and the reason they're doing it, Aaron, is they felt that probably polls told them that he would stand a better chance of getting reelected the worse Trump behaved. And now that Trump has caved, do you think there might be some second guessing of themselves at the PC party, that maybe things aren't going to be as easy as we thought? Because I think that's the general thought, is that they're convinced that Doug Ford has, no matter who the Liberals put up or the NDP, he's the stronger candidate. But if there isn't a way to prove that he's a stronger candidate, does it matter? In other words, if the tree falls and nobody's in the forest, does anybody really hear it?
Well, I think what sours it for me is the fact that he's backed off on removing American booze from the LCBO store shelves. That's one thing that's counting against Doug now, because it looks like he's backpedaling and waffling. The other thing that's counting against him is the fact that he's decided not to cancel the $55 million contract with Starlink. Had he continued with and followed through on that, I think a lot of Ontarians would be viewing him in a more favorable light as well.
And Starlink is the Elon Musk internet availability. It's a very good bit of hardware, though.
Admittedly, it's a very good bit of hardware. But when you look at the fact that Elon and his muskrats are trying to pirate social insurance numbers from people in the States, as well as seize control of a lot of the government's payment methods and write themselves back doors, that kind of, to me, sours the whole Starlink experience. Now, don't forget, Starlink was also the same company that tried to trap people that signed up for a free month during the most recent hurricane season. With the storms that hit the States, they were offering Starlink free to individuals who provided their banking information. That, however, would have locked them into $249 a month contracts once that 30 days was up. So again, great platform, great technology, unfortunately, really crappy owner.
Well, On that note,
Sorry.
no, it's okay. All I know is, Aaron, that there's, well, anyway, we all know, everybody past whatever age knows that there are businessmen that are upfront and honest, and then there's the other type. I'll leave everyone to decide when they're dealing with people which ones those people are. They can figure it out on their own. They don't need my help. But
No.
Thanks for doing this, Aaron.
Hey, always glad to, Frank.
Have a great night. And you too, folks. Remember, if you want to follow us, you can do it on Candid Frank Stanisci YouTube. Thanks for watching, everybody.